second films of trilogies typically are the best ones because everything's up in the air.
In a way, I think the Wachowskis delivered an entertaining action film with the first Matrix and then wanted to bring in more of their riddles, more of their rich tapestry of ideas in the second and third films.
Every story you've ever heard about vampires, werewolves, or aliens is the system assimilating some program that's doing something they're not supposed to be doing.
The story the first one tells, because it just gets started, it leaves you with 1,000 different fun interpretations that you can make. And it doesn't really challenge you in terms of fundamental issues about what's a messiah, what's a savior, what is liberation, what is waking up. The second Renaissance animatrix cartoons actually tell you the fall of man. It starts out, everything was happy, sort of the Garden of Eden situation. Civil society was fine, they had machines, all that was fine. But then two things happened, and they used two words to describe original sin here.
And corruption.
Vanity and corruption.
Thus did man become the architect of his own demise.
Humans basically attack the machines. The machines therefore turn on the humans and imprison them. And incidentally, to use a phrase that the machines had the pure spirit of humanity. Most of the traditions say that spirit is loving, kind, benevolent, and your true nature until you fight it. Then it'll appear as a demon, or then it appears as a horrifying machine. Neo is going through his own literally awakening or liberation, how he's going to return to source. And that means merge with spirit or light. If you look at just the first installment, it can be read as a simple dualistic tale, that the Matrix is bad. If you get out of the Matrix, that's good. And it's a very simplistic kind of notion if it's read that way. In the context of all three of them, it's clearly a non-dual statement, because consciousness and matter are basically all interwoven.
At the end of the first film, Neo has attained what he was supposed to attain. So he is the master, he is the adept. There is nowhere else for him to go in terms of this gnosis. And what I think the second film shows is that that may be true, but the gnosis is only a means to another end. It's not an end in itself.
I wish I knew what I'm supposed to do. That's all. I just wish I knew.
In the first film, we only get that glimpse of the really ugly, drab, horrible real world, the desert of the real. And we spend most of the time in the realm of mentally projected images. In the second film, we finally get some bodies.
The sex between Neo and Trinity seemed to affirm the body so beautifully, and the rave scene seemed to affirm material incarnation too, and that seemed to be what we possessed over and against the machines.
There's a whole school of spirituality, as you know, East and West, called Tantra. It basically maintains that neither men nor women can get final enlightenment without each other. And some of the tantric schools maintain that you actually have to have sexual union in order to get the energy to unite in a really binding way that will allow you to transcend your own ego and your own separateness.
It's a celebration of embodiment. It's a celebration of physicality and sensuality. There's no ideas, there's no minds. And there's a real interesting contrast there because their dance is a ritual. It's a communal event. This is not the first time they've done this. The drums are there, they're all set to go. You know, this is what they do. This is their sacrament. And one of the important things about it is that it's public. Everybody's body is equal. But what Neo and Trinity are doing is dangerous because it's private. It's the elevation of a certain body over all the other bodies. And you're not fighting for the survival of the group anymore. You're fighting for this one person that you love. But he's supposed to be special. So if Gnosticism is about freeing yourself from those attachments, then Neo is definitely a failure at that.
All must be done as one. If one fails, all fail.
When the Keymaker says, all must work as one, it sounds like the Upanishads, and I hear overtones of Advaita Vedanta.
The Upanishads were scriptures, essentially, that were written about 800 BC. They are texts which discuss philosophy at a deep level. They're probably the earliest serious philosophical texts.
In them is teaching of monism. Sometimes it's called Advaita Vedanta. And this is the belief that all things are united as one. All things come from the same source, Brahman, who is the foundation of all being. And so the goal of this form of Hinduism is to realize your identity with the all.
A program can either choose to hide here or return to the source.
The machine mainframe.
Yes. Where you must go. Where the path of the one ends.
You could see Reloaded as analogous in some ways to the New Testament, because the New Testament is the Old Testament reloaded, made new. And one of the main concerns of the New Testament, especially Paul's letters, especially viewed from within a Protestant interpretive context, is free will and grace. And this is free will is a central concern of the second film.
Tandy?
You already know if I'm going to take it?
Wouldn't be much of an oracle if I didn't.
But if you already know, how can I make a choice?
Because you didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to try to understand why you made it.
Well, the second film seemed to me to shift focus away from epistemology, questions about skepticism and knowledge, towards questions about free will.
You know why we are here.
I am a trafficker of information. I know everything I can. The question is, do you know why you are here?
Free will is a deep philosophical problem, and a deep philosophical problem always arises because of two things. On the one hand, it seems things have to be a certain way, but on the other, it seems they can't be. You start off with determinism. Determinism is a combination basically of two claims. The first is that everything which exists or occurs has a cause. The second is that causes make their effects inevitable. You combine those two claims, and you've got a real problem for free will.
We're not here because we're free. We're here because we're not free.
Laplace, in the early 19th century, gave us the image of physical determinism that we still tend to use. It's very vivid. And he says, in effect, everything that happens in nature is simply the result of the interactions of all the smallest parts, called, the atoms, if you like, or the subatomic particles. If we knew the position of every atom at a moment, and we could predict the next instant, an omniscient demon who had a complete snapshot, in effect, of the universe at any instant could then predict the whole future forever, because what happens at every moment is simply a deterministic outcome of the interaction of those small parts. Contemporary physicists tell us it's wildly wrong, that is, that quantum indeterminacy reigns. But even if that's true, at a more macroscopic level, things seem to be very deterministic indeed in many regards.
You are here because you were sent here. You were told to come here, and then you obeyed.
We usually think we can know about what's going to happen next in the future based on our knowledge of laws of nature. That's how I know if I hold up my keys or a wallet or something like this and let go of it, it's going to definitely fall downward. And Hume said, well, how do we know that?
There is only one constant, one universal. It is the only real truth, causality.
Whenever gravity operates in any way, that's causality. Hume called it the cement of the universe. It's what ties one event to another.
People don't generally have a philosophical view about causality. They just think that things happen, and that when something happens and something else happens that regularly after it, then the A caused B.
Hume said, really, strictly speaking, the most we can say is, up until now, heavy objects have always fallen downwards. And the only basis we have for thinking that it's going to fall downwards again the next time I drop it is, he says, in this belief that the future will continue to be like the past. And he says that's really a matter of, for us, custom or habit.
Hume is perhaps the greatest skeptical philosopher ever to have lived, and takes pleasure, sort of Socratic pleasure, in showing people how their attempts to solve skepticism don't succeed.
Action, reaction, cause, and effect.
Everything begins with choice.
No, wrong. Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without.